I would love to tell you that I did it on purpose. It was a complete accident. What's going on YouTube? And hello everybody. A little bit of a different style of video than what I've been uploading recently. I thought I might just give this one a try and see what people think. If you're new around here, you don't know who I am, my name is Desi Cooney. I am the head coach of Team Outlier and I'm a competitive lifter myself. So today I'm going to be reacting to my last meet that I did in July of this year, 2023. Because I think there's some valuable lessons I took away from it that I'd like to share with you, namely 3 of them. So I'm just gonna be very casual getting into it here today. A little bit of background about this meet. This is the 10th time I've competed. I've been competing for about 6 or 7 years now, mostly in the USA powerlifting. This was my first venture out into the drug-tested side of the WRPF, which is, if you're not aware, a little bit different from the USAPL, different federation. Namely, they use different bars, and this was my first time doing a 24-hour weigh-in instead of the traditional 2-hour weigh-in, which honestly I was a big fan of. This was also my first time competing out of my home state of Nebraska. Had to take a trip down to Kansas City for this one. So not too far for me, but you know, that was a factor as well. And overall, it was just a really good experience there at Strong Barbell Club. JP Price is the owner of that one, and he put on a really fun meet, and I just had a really good time. And just some context regarding my goals and my mindset coming into this meet. I really wanted, well, I had some specific numbers in mind, that's for sure, which I'll get into whether or not that was a good thing here in a little bit. But I really wanted to crack a 1,400 pound total. I wanted to squat 500 in competition for the first time, deadlift 600 competition for the first time, and bench 300 in competition for the first time. And you'll see that I was successful on some of those things, and some of those things I fell a little bit short, and I'll talk you through them as they happen. So obviously we're gonna talk about squats first. The day before the competition, I weighed in the 100 kg weight class, a little bit under the cap. I think I was about 218 pounds on this day. Weight class was about 5 or 6 people, I can't quite remember. But again, I wasn't going into this trying to be necessarily super competitive in terms of placing or anything like that. I was more so just chasing a couple of specific numbers and goals that I had in mind. So watching my first attempt here with you guys, I opened up squatting with 207.5 kgs, which is about 457 pounds, which was cool. This is the heaviest I've ever opened. It was also the first time using a squat bar for me, and it went really, really well, as you can see. Pause here, a little bit of background context about the equipment I'm wearing here. I'm wearing Reebok Legacy Lifter shoes. I like a pretty big heel when I'm squatting, and that's what I'm wearing. I'm using Inzer Ergo Pro knee sleeves, which I'm a big fan of. If you haven't tried them, they're pretty good. This is a custom singlet from A7 that we did a drop for my team. So it has the team logo Outlier on it. And those are A7 wrist straps. And the cool thing about the WRPF, for me anyway, is that they allow you to wear elbow sleeves in the squat and deadlift, which is big for me because I'm prone to getting some elbow pain. So I did choose to wear those here. This one went really well. Obviously super easy opener, 3 white lights, depth was perfect there. And again, I came into this one with just the goal of hitting 500. So I jumped immediately to 217.5 kilos, which is 480 pounds, give or take. And this is where the first kind of hurdle happened of the day. So I tried to keep things as similar as possible, and it still felt extremely easy. And while I don't feel like I really changed anything, and even from the video, it's hard to say that I did, you can see the 2 side referees here give me red lights for depth. I went and checked with them and it was for depth. Going into this meet, I almost wasn't sure what to think because again, this was my first time in the WRPF. The judging in the USAPL is very, very strict, and I wasn't sure if that was going to be the case in this new federation as well, but it was. You'll see that throughout the day, these refs were very, very strict with calls like this, which honestly is a good thing. So they red lighted me here. This lift did not count. So I was faced with a decision. Do I want to basically take this again, a number that I know I can hit, or do I want to jump up anyway and risk not getting that 3rd attempt and just being stuck with my opener on the board, basically 457. And this is where the first lesson that I want to impart from this video comes in, which is do your best not to chase numbers. Again, it was outside my home state, so it was just me and my girlfriend there. She was helping handle me and helping me with warm-ups and stuff like that, but I was calling my own attempts. And I don't suggest that, honestly, for most people. With all of my athletes, I encourage them to just let me do that part for them. When you don't have to think about it, it really takes ego out of the equation. It's much easier to go 9 for 9 and end up with a bigger total that way. And you'll see throughout the day, I was kind of gunslinging, for lack of a better word, and sometimes it worked out for me, sometimes it didn't, but obviously I chose to go up here to 501 pounds for the competition PR here on my third attempt. And I just figured if that wasn't deep enough, I'll sit it lower. So came out here a little bit more hyped up for my third attempt, my 501 pound squat. And you can see they're watching me very closely here, and good on them for it. But I just decided I was taking this one to the basement. There was no way I was not walking away with this. And yeah, you can see there I absolutely sunk that one. Hamstring to calf pretty much. And as a result, it paid off. I took a gamble and it paid off. Finally got that 500 pound squat in competition. Moving on to bench press, which is traditionally my worst lift. I don't consider myself to be a very good bencher, and I don't think many would consider me that way either. Coming into this meet, my best numbers were a 485 squat, a 292 bench, and a 584 deadlift. Those were at different competitions though. My best total ever was 1350 coming into this one. So I opened up bench press here at 275 pounds or 125 kilos. And really bench was feeling pretty good on this day in warm-ups and stuff like that. So I was really confident coming in. You can see my setup here. I felt really sturdy on the bench. Felt like I had good leg drive. And again, my goal was to crack 300 pounds in contest. So the goal on third attempt was 303 pounds. They were pretty good with press commands. It wasn't long or anything like that. And you can see 3 white lights here on this first attempt. Now this is where the second hard-learned lesson for me, and hopefully for you, came in from meet day. So basically, you're gonna see what happens here on my second and third attempt, but basically my hips start coming off the pad. Like, one of the rules in powerlifting, if you're not familiar, your butt has to be in contact with the bench the whole time. And both referees, although it's very hard to see it happening on camera here from this angle, call me for that coming up here. And you know, there's lots of ways to fix this. It's not necessarily an issue for me anymore, although it's something I have dealt with off and on for my entire career pretty much. I think the biggest reason it was happening at this meet is because the gym that I train at had recently got a Thompson fat pad, which I love, by the way. I have nothing but good things to say about the Thompson fat pad. I think it's the best bench I've ever benched on for feeling as strong as I can. However, at least the one I have is noticeably higher from the ground than a competition bench. And as a result, it's much more difficult to even let your hips come off of the fat pad because it's just so much higher. So I think I got used to not having to think about it or not having to try so hard to keep my butt down. And it came back and kind of bit me here on this one, as you will see. So lesson number 2 was train on as specific of equipment as you can going into the meet. Watching here on my second attempt, I jumped up to 292 or 132.5 kgs, which again ties my best in a meet ever. And I was doing it on a second attempt here because I was pretty confident. And honestly, I thought it went really well, but the refs thought differently here. So we'll watch and see what happens. Good press command, good control, and it comes up a lot faster than the last time I tried this in competition, to be honest. But as you can see, called me for a butt coming off the bench. So again, I was faced with that same decision. Do I take it again or maybe make a small jump, you know, and just try to keep the hips down? Or do I go for my original goal? And this is gonna be a recurring theme of the day. I really was just chasing numbers on this day despite what I would encourage most people to do. So naturally I went for the 303 here. The thing was, I think I just got a little bit too much in my head after that second attempt. I was really trying to focus on keeping my hips down despite not having practiced it that well, as I said, with different equipment. And so I think what that did was just threw me off too much, to be honest with you. I felt like I didn't have that amount of leg drive that I am used to. And as a result, this just doesn't go anywhere. Honestly, I get like halfway up, realize it's not happening, and then I just kind of gave up, so not to waste energy. But moving on to deadlift. And deadlift is by far my best lift. While maybe not my favorite one in training, it's easily the one I'm best at and the one I'm best leveraged for. My best coming into the meet, as I said, was a 584, and that was on a stiff bar. This was my first time competing on a deadlift bar. I pulled on one a few times in training, but it was a kabuki bar, and I was really excited to see what I could get out of that additional whip or that flex of the barbell. So I opened here at 242.5 kgs, which is about 535 pounds. And deadlifts for the most part went really, really well. The biggest hurdle to get over was actually here on the opener, because I was in, I think, the last flight of like 3 or 4 flights of this day. And the platform was pretty well worn by that point from everyone lifting on it. You're not gonna be able to see it too clearly here, but the carpet itself was sliding on the platform. Like the carpet had almost come loose from the boards or the mats or whatever they had underneath it. And in my kind of wider sumo stance, where a lot of that force is going outward, I was actually like pulling the carpet off of the floor, and it was sort of bunching up. Maybe you can see that, I don't know, around the edge of my feet. And I almost like lost balance here on this opener with a weight that isn't super heavy for me and shouldn't be too challenging. Luckily, got it through okay. So I was feeling a little bit weird after that one, honestly, but I decided to jump up to 257.5 kgs, which is about 568 pounds for my second attempt. And what I really focused on here was like, okay, if the carpet is loose, then I'm just gonna push it out as wide as I can, literally spread the floor, like that old cue that a lot of people focus on, before I get down to the bar so that my feet can't slide any further. And I was much better for it. Honestly, it worked out well. I think this second attempt at almost 570 moved better and felt better and easier than my 535 opener. So after this, I was pretty confident to go for it. But you can see, even as I'm walking around here, like a little bit of a change in my demeanor, I think, from squats and even bench press. I'm a lot calmer here because I just been served, you know, 2 helpings of humble pie on my second and third attempt bench press. So I got a little bit more level-headed, a little bit less excited for this one. And that is actually my third lesson I came away with here, is to experiment with different headspaces or different mindsets. Some people love to come in really hyped up. I think that's probably the most common, where a lot of times you can really overdo it in that case. You can, you know, like me, but coming off the bench, you might forget to listen for cues or something like that. And while that hype is good for a lot of people, it can easily be overdone. So I encourage you to experiment with, again, different headspaces. Trying to come in a little bit calmer, a little bit more collected, does a lot of people a lot of good, myself included. So hopefully for my next meet, what I'm trying to arrange is just someone to call my attempts for me, so I really don't have to think about anything, and I can stay a little bit more cool, calm, and collected like I was here on deadlifts. But I did end up loading 272.5 kgs or 600 pounds on my third attempt. And I felt pretty good about it. Coming in, I was pretty confident. This is actually a state record attempt for the state of Nebraska. Not that that means too much. This isn't a huge federation in Nebraska, but it was kind of cool to be able to attempt something like that. Also, quick note, because the screen is telling me that I would jump from 5th to 3rd place if I successfully pulled this, I would love to tell you that I did it on purpose. It was a complete accident. I ended up selecting this attempt, which would perfectly tie the guy in 3rd place, and I would then beat him on body weight because I was slightly lower than him if I successfully pulled this. Would love to tell you that that was my intention. It was a complete accident. I was, again, just chasing numbers. And as you can see here, I really have been focusing on taking my time in my setup here and pretending to pull the slack out of the bar, even when it's a stiff bar and there's very little slack to pull in training. And that really paid off here. You can see how much that bar is bending. And it was heavy, but I never had a doubt while I was pulling it. I knew I could lock that out. And the judges agreed, 3 white lights. And so that was my last lift of the day, and it was a success. and that locked in my total, which I think adds up to 1380 or something really close, 1375. And I'll put that on the screen here so you can see. But this was my best meet ever. 7 for 9, or actually 6 for 9 on the day because I missed that squat, which doesn't feel like a miss, but technically it didn't count. So it left me with a lot to improve on. Again, I hit a couple of milestones that I wanted to hit, but there are still some that I have yet to conquer. And I'm hoping to potentially compete here in the next month or two again in the USAPL and see if I can't accomplish those last two things that I didn't get to at this meet. But I came away with a lot of learning experiences, these 3 lessons that I've talked about here. I had a lot of fun. Again, it was a great meet, a great gym, and a great atmosphere, and I had a great time. And that's all I have for you today. That's a wrap on my last competition, the Sunflower State Games. I hope you found this helpful, or at the very least, somewhat entertaining. I appreciate you watching it, and be sure to like the video and follow for more upcoming content if you like this sort of thing.